and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
And today we're talking about The Town That Dreaded Sundown. It's March. It's going to be spring soon, Meg, and the sun will not go down as early.
Yay! And I'm also, but more importantly, I'm excited that Twilight Zone's coming April 1st. And there's going to be, like, great horror movies coming up. Like
the new movie, Us, with Jordan Peele's new movie.
Another Jordan Peele thing. So I feel like Jordan Peele's just going to make the spring wonderful, don't you think?
Yes. He's going to get us through this long winter.
Yes. So I'm so excited. I cannot wait for Twilight Zone. Like, I am beside myself. I can't wait.
I'm ready. And CBS All Access, I'm coming for you. I don't know what that means.
They are warned.
But I am ready. And I feel like, I've already found a lot to watch. I've been watching more stuff than I probably should be. Should be doing other things with my life. But I've had a good winter so far with, like, streaming stuff.
Yeah, you told me to watch the second season of American Crime Story. So I just watched that the last, 2 days. The Gianni Versace assassination of Gianni Versace. So I think I might go back and watch O.J. Simpson. Did you watch that? I can't remember.
Yes, O.J. Simpson, that one was great too. But I liked season 2 of American Crime Story better. Okay. If you haven't watched it, friends, I highly recommend it. Whether you're a true crime aficionado or fan or not, it's so well done.
Yeah, it's just a good human story. It's not necessarily only for true crime people. But, like we were saying, it just stinks because American Horror Story, in our opinion, is not good. So, but, maybe he'll turn it around someday and maybe it'll be good. I don't know.
Did you ever watch Scream Queens?
I did, actually. Yeah, I did. How about you?
I didn't. And, it seems like it's made for me, but I don't know. Maybe I need to go back and watch it.
It was good, and then it was also not good. So, I don't know. There were parts of it where I was like, oh, this is good. But then it was kind of like Glee or something, where it was good for a little tiny slice of time, and then it wasn't anymore,
That's happened with some of our other favorite shows, like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I really loved season 1, and I think I love parts of season 2, but then it just, I think I've given up on it now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that stinks. And it's just I don't know about you, but I'm kind of getting to that point where if I start something and if it doesn't grab me pretty quick, I'm on to the next thing. It's not like Blockbuster days where you're stuck with it. So you can just go on to the next thing.
It's true. There's only so many hours in the day and there's so many shows to watch. Speaking of watching, I have never seen this movie, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, or the remake or whatever reboot. Had you seen this before?
No, actually I hadn't. So, but I'll explain why I wanted to see it. So, about 3 years ago, I saw this thing about this movie about urban legends and things, if things are real, which urban legends are based on fact and all that stuff. And they started talking about sort of Lover's Lane and that whole thing. And they brought up this movie. And right away they said The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And I was like, that is an amazing title. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's perfect. And it's a title of a Riverdale episode too, because they do a lot of horror references.
Yes, that was one reason too. Once I saw that it was a Riverdale episode title, I was like, okay, I need to get on it. So anyway, they talked about the Phantom Killer. So in this documentary I was watching, and of course you know I love true crime, so I was like, well, that I'll have to check that out. So finally I decided to watch it now, and it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. It's kind of weird, but I'll get into the facts first. First of all, oh wait, go ahead.
I want you to tell me everything about the facts about this case, and that's the only note I wrote down. Because you know what, Meg? This movie was so bad. I'm sorry. The acting was so bad, and the writing, the lines. But I'm like, you know what is going to redeem it for me is you telling me these true facts. So just tell me, Meg, what was it based on? Tell me it's more interesting than this movie.
I know. I think I watched it in 3 different chunks because I couldn't sit through it in a whole sitting, which was a bummer.
I was like, oh, this is like based on a real thing, and I can't wait. And I think part of it is like how they chose to do it. It was sort of like pseudo documentary style. I didn't like that.
It was weird because it was like they weren't fully committed to the documentary style. Like it was sort of, like you said, pseudo. It was like, well, fake, but also like half documentary style. So it was just weird. And then I had heard that somebody was going to get killed by a trombone, so I was very excited. But, I feel like he really cut some corners with that. I feel like if you're going to kill somebody with a trombone, like, do it right. Don't put a knife on the trombone. I feel like that was cheating. So that was another bummer and let down. Okay, so first of all, the movie came out Christmas Eve, 1976. Can you imagine?
What? Who made that decision?
Like, can you imagine being like, okay, everybody, like, jump in the station wagon. It's 1976. We're going to go. It's Christmas. Let's go watch this movie.
Like, I can see, and I love a good marketing strategy. Like, for example, a couple weeks ago, or a month ago now, when Happy Death Day to You came out, they promoted it and released it the day before Valentine's Day, because that's some good alternate programming for those of us who would rather, go to that than a romantic movie. But who's going to go see this movie, and especially in 1976 on Christmas?
Apparently not too many people.
maybe they released it because they wanted to get in the Oscar race.
Yeah, I think they're like, it's down to the line. The acting was so, I kept thinking like local theater, community theater. I
think that's giving it too much credit.
The guy who played Sparkplug.
Oh, God.
The guy who, like, dressed as a woman, I guess he's the director. So Kelly just rolled her eyes really hard. Okay, so the murders that happened, and that was another thing, too. I'm never going to get to this. That was another thing, too, where... Okay, so I watched The Others, which takes place in the 1940s. And then I watched this movie that also takes place in the 1940s. But they could not feel more different.
Oh, my gosh. I didn't even realize that those took place in the same era. You could never convince me by watching these two movies that they took place in the same era.
And I understand it's like 76, and so... and I know they didn't have a big budget, and they had the cars right. I'll give them that they had the 1940s cars. But other than that, it did not feel in any way, and I also know it's a very different place in the world than in the others, but it was like, it kept like frying my brain that it was the same, it was 1 year apart when they were taking place. Like, I just kept thinking about it. So yeah, this is based on 8 people who were attacked in Texarkana. Or Texarkana, I guess how you say it, between February and May of 1946. And it is sort of how I'm sure it's an amalgam of many different things, but the urban legend of Lover's Lane, and like the guy with the hook and those kind of things, it sort of was born out of this particular, string of murders. So at the time it was called the Texarkana Moonlight Murders. And it was basically people who, were out and they were in their cars. It was couples. And what's interesting, what really stuck in my mind is he was never caught. He was never found, just like Zodiac. And Zodiac did the exact same thing. And there's actually people with, pretty decent sort of, I don't want to say proof, but evidence that they could be the same person, which is kind of cool.
That is interesting. And I know there's is it Jake Gyllenhaal Zodiac Killer movie, or Zodiac movie, but have they done any more movies about the Zodiac Killer, or is there a TV series about him or her? Do we know it's a man?
Yeah, we do know it's a man, but you never know, right? I don't know. I can't think of, like, I'm sure there's, like, TV movies and stuff. I can't think of anything that is about the Zodiac. Yeah, I'm sure there's, like, stuff, but nothing as prominent as that movie that you mentioned. But Zodiac, basically, he did the same thing a little bit later in California, and he was going after the same type of people, and he was never caught. So there's some evidence and some, theories that they're the same person, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
You said that he's going after the same kind of people. What kind of people was he going after?
Young couples in their car at night, sort of in that age group where you can't go home to make out and stuff. So it was kind of the people he was going after. So let's see. The first two victims and we call him the Phantom Killer, they survived. And then the first double murder was Richard Griffin and Polly Ann Moore. That was a month later. And then Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker, they died after that. And that was 3 weeks after the second killings. I'm sorry, the first. And then Virgil Starks was killed, and his wife Katie was severely wounded. So they weren't, out making out because they didn't have a house, but they were probably just out sort of enjoying the day or evening. And it didn't really seem like there was any reason, and it was extremely terrifying for these people in this small community. And so it's a fascinating murder, and no one was killed by a trombone. So it probably wouldn't shock you to know that family members sued the makers of this film over how sort of loose they were with the facts.
That's interesting because I just watched, several true crime based movies or TV shows, and they worked closely with the people to make sure that they were respecting the victims and everything. So the one show I watched, I'm laughing, but it's Dirty John. It's like based on that.
Oh, I watched that.
Oh yeah. And the guy who was basically catfishing people, and then also Escape at Dannemora. It's a true crime. They escape from prison, but I was just listening to a podcast that Ben Stiller talking about, you have to, the victims of the people that those guys killed, you have to be thinking of it in terms that they're watching it and their families, and how do you portray it and come across to be truthful but respectful. And it's funny that this movie apparently let's kill somebody with a trombone. I don't know.
It's so random. I mean, I guess one thing you can give this movie is it was sort of, it's known as being one of the first slasher type movies with like the mute sort of killer, and so it has those sort of hallmark sort of things that we later have come to know and love. But it's so true, and I think I absolutely love true crime and I absolutely love horror, but when you bring them together, you have to be so careful. For instance, like, is it Wes Craven who did Scream? All of a sudden my mind's, yeah. When Wes Craven did Scream, he said, like, I was inspired by the Gainesville Ripper. And instead of doing an actual movie about the Gainesville Ripper, who is one of the worst serial killers out there, he did his whole other thing, and even he took some inspiration from it, but it wasn't about that. And I think it's just so, and therefore, then he doesn't have to sort of exist in this world of we're using real names and this happened to real people. And this movie very much embraced that, which I think is okay. There are good true crime / horror movies, but yeah, that is a line that you have to sort of be very careful on, and I just don't think Sparkplug was up to the task.
Oh boy, I don't know. Do you know the information about the remake or the reboot of this?
Do you know who wrote it?
No.
Now this is making sense. It's written by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa. He wrote the remake. That's who writes Riverdale. No wonder he's been dropping the Town That Dreaded Sundown references. Well, now I'm very interested. It's called a meta sequel.
Mm.
It was produced by Jason Blum and Ryan Murphy. And we were just talking about Ryan Murphy.
Okay, well now we have to watch this immediately.
Yeah, I really want to watch it because I'd be so curious. Oh, it has Joshua Leonard in it from Blair Witch.
So, see, now I know we don't trust Ryan Murphy fully, but after watching Gianna Versace, I trust him more. And we obviously love Riverdale and Sabrina, so
it's got Veronica Cartwright in it. So, I mean, there's some good stuff in here. Okay, we definitely have to watch this because I would just be curious to see how is this treated, and does anybody get killed by a trombone or any other musical instrument?
And not that good people can't make bad movies, because I know that that's possible too. But I feel like, this original had so much potential, but just the tone of it was not great.
Well, and like for instance, it says it came out 2 years before Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Talk about a very different, they're similar in a way, you could argue. But again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based on Ed Gein, who was very different than Leatherface. And the way that it sort of has that documentary style at the beginning is so much more effectively done. This one just felt like you're watching like remember those like old like videos about your changing body or something? Yeah. Like it just was so
It's a
strange.
Puberty video.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's 70% fresh, which is pretty good.
That's really good. The remake.
How about should we watch it and then we'll come back and talk about it?
I think we should, because I have nothing more to say about the original.
No, I don't have anything else to say about the original. So we'll have to compare and contrast.
We're back. We watched the 2014 The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which is 70% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. And Meg, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, right away, I thought it was interesting that they were showing it, and something that I forgot to mention was how they play the movie in Texarkana every Halloween. And I thought that was kind of cool that they showed it in this, and it was kind of a way to start sort of showing how meta this movie is and how it like takes place in our world where the movie happened, and so I really like that about it. Also, it sounds like I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes while I watched it, so sorry everybody. But overall, I liked it. I thought it was pretty solid. I mean, especially I think we both agree it's better than the first one.
Definitely. And right away, they were absolutely not even winking at the audience, but staring us straight in the face and like holding us by the shoulders and saying, look, we know what that movie was, and this is what this movie is.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it kind of had a Scream sensibility a little bit like that. And I think this was the only way to actually like make this movie. Like I just don't feel like if they had tried to just literally like remake the original, it wouldn't have worked. It would have been so boring and like pointless. But this felt like it had this layer to it. And I mean, they even added in the part where they had the director's son, like the director of the 1970s movie. So it was just like this kind of really layered, sort of unexpected treat. It was good.
I enjoyed it too. And so they designed it and maybe wrote it so that everything had this 70s vibe, which was really ironic because the movie from the 70s didn't look like it was in the 40s, but now this movie from 2014 looked like it was in the 70s, which was just amazing. And it felt very Riverdale-ish. The direction was very specific and like sharp cuts, sharp camera angles, and we looked up the director, and it looks like he's done some American Horror Story, which it felt like that vibe. Ryan Murphy produced this too, so that made sense. But I thought the writing was good. They had a mixed race gay couple in it, which was progressive and amazing. They got killed unfortunately, but by the trombone, Meg.
The trombone made an appearance. Yeah, I thought it was good. It had twists where it had the 2 killers at the end, and then I like how they kind of played that into, and that's what makes Texarkana unique because it is in 2 different states and everything, so that's kind of cool. It was female driven. You know, this is like this would be a prime example of like the thing I'm always harping on about character driven stories, and it's like this is why this movie was more watchable and more it was scarier, and also it's gory, by the way. It was really gory in a good way. I loved it. But the first movie, there's just like no character to really like hang your hat on, but in this one, like I felt right away like I had a connection with her, especially because I liked how they used her as sort of the opening. Oftentimes in horror movies, that opening credits girl is the girl who dies, right? Or the girl who maybe she survives, but she tells the story, but she's telling it to our main character. So I thought it was kind of cool that the opening credit girl, so to speak, was our final girl too.
And a couple things about her. She looks like Margot Kidder, a young Margot Kidder, and especially because she's uh, done up this way with in the 70s sort of look. And Meg read an interesting thing that she was the female MacGyver when they rebooted MacGyver, but then they ended up going with a male star. So that would have been interesting.
Typical.
Jeez. But MacGyver, just a quick Minnesota-related story. What is his name? Dean Anderson something. Harold? Michael? Harold? Hyrie? Whatever his name is.
Colder. You're getting much colder.
He has a cabin on the Iron Range, and people used to. I mean, this girl told me that her aunt would canoe topless by his cabin just to try to get his attention. You know, so you go, girl.
Yeah, I mean, you go and get MacGyver.
I don't know his name. I'm sorry. I mean, MacGyver was, my thing, and it's not yet either. But we need to rank both of these movies, and obviously we got to use the trombones as the scale, right? No pun intended.
Wait, what's the
Like a music scale.
Oh, okay. The pun went over my head.
Are you looking up his name?
Yeah. Hold on. Well, I was hoping it would just kind of like pop up, but now they're just telling me about the new MacGyver. Hold on.
So we're going to use a scale of trombones, 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie, and we're going to rank both movies. Tell me his name.
Richard Dean Anderson.
Richard, not Harold or Harry. Okay, so the original, how many trombones, and then the remake, how many trombones?
Okay, I'm gonna give it 4 because I wanted to give it 3, but I'm giving an extra trombone because I like how they took a true crime and they tried to make a movie around it. And they tried to have humor in it sometimes, and they tried to make it sort of a documentary style. So I kind of feel like they were taking some chances, and also it came out even before like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and so I feel like they were kind of playing around with the slasher and a little bit before a lot of people did, and so I think it deserves a little bit of credit.
Okay, I'm giving the original 2 trombones. I'm sorry, I just didn't enjoy it. How many trombones do you give the remake?
I'm gonna give it an 8. I thought it was really good. Oh, I also liked how in the new one, how they had him talk, because I thought that was actually scarier. I think sometimes mute is scary, like in the first one, but I mean, it wasn't scary in the first one, but sometimes a mute killer can be scary. But I actually really liked that, and I liked her, and I liked the writing, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
I also am giving the remake an 8. I don't know why this was not on my radar at all. I don't remember it coming out. And I don't know what we were doing in 2014. I mean, just raising small children, I guess. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're interested in the story, and it sounds like, oh, this is intriguing, just watch the remake. I don't think there's really anything from the old one that you need to see.
And also, I mean, they did such a good job of sort of covering the real history and even the original movie in this remake that you don't even need to see it, like you said.
That's a good point. I mean, they show the trombone scene from the original one. So, and then there's another one in this one. So.
And they showed it more than once.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would just say watch the new one.
So, we hope that you're having a good week wherever you are, Horror Rewind listeners. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, rate us, visit Meg's website, meghofdahl.com, pick up her new book, Daughters of Darkness, and also you can follow us on all of our social media, horrorrewind.com, or email us, horrorrewindpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye, y'all.